King Tanner says, we've heard why Mitch Marner should come to Chicago. Why should Mitch Marner not come to Chicago? Wouldn't you think a player of that caliber is playing to win rather than playing for a fat paycheck?
If I'm Mitch Marner, that's the first thing that I'm thinking about in the negative column for Chicago, is that the Blackhawks are not a Marner away from being contenders.
No.
As much as he would immediately raise the level of the team, immediately raising the level of the team from a 60-point team to what would be in the mid-90s to make the playoffs, takes more than just Mitch Marner. So it would be a process. It would be, a few, at least one more season, likely, of not being in the playoffs or in the conversation for that. But Marner gets you closer. If I'm him, I wouldn't want to go from Toronto and being, always thought about as cup contender, being in the postseason, being in those high pressure games and everything. That's what all professional athletes want to be in, is those situations and playing for, playoffs and championships and stuff. And for a guy in his prime, I wouldn't want to waste much of that time. So if he doesn't believe the Blackhawks are a him away, and it's going to be a season or two or, however long, maybe 3 years, who knows how things pan out. But if I was him, I that would be the first thing, is like, I'm going here. I would probably be getting a lot of money, maybe more than any other team is going to offer. But is that worth giving up a year of my prime to not play in the postseason?
Well, that's the thing, is what is Marner's motivation? And again, you have to take everything that you're seeing around Maple Leafs fans with a grain of salt, because they're pissed. They're looking at, but people are thinking that he is holding out for the best possible deal, and that is his main concern. Doesn't seem very logical to me, but fine. If I'm Mitch Marner and I'm leaving Toronto, I am going to find my best chance at kicking Toronto's ass next year in the playoffs. I'm looking at Carolina.
He's going to Florida.
I'm looking at Florida. I'm looking at potentially the Rangers. I'm looking at a place where I'm going to be able to stick it to the Leafs over and over again. How about Montreal? For Mitch Marner.
Oh my gosh.
Montreal's a year or two ahead of the Hawks in a rebuild. They're a little bit closer to contention. They made the playoffs this year.
I can smell the burning jerseys from Toronto now.
Mitch Marner to Montreal makes a lot of sense. I can't speak with honesty because Montreal hasn't been that relevant in a long time, where it just doesn't feel like the intensity is there as it is in Toronto. With their players.
they're on the upswing.
Right.
So I think the fan temperature, taking the temp of Montreal is better now, because they see they're in that upward swing of their rebuild. They've got Caulfield and Suzuki and Slafkovsky and Demidov and those guys playing well. They made the playoffs. Like, that's the upswing, and that's where I hope the Hawks can get to in 2 years. Let's say I've been seeing some talk about Marner making sense to Anaheim. I know that doesn't directly correlate to playing against Toronto, but
that would feel like a big loss for the Hawks.
It would. But Anaheim is ahead of Chicago. They have more younger players at the NHL level as solidified contributors, and they're still adding from that young talent pool that they have. And now you go out and get Joe Quenneville. That's a move of, we want to stop being in this quote unquote like rebuilds stage, and they want to start winning now. So I mean, that's a team that feels like, with the situation they're in, is a Marner away from being like, pencil them into the playoff hunt.
Potentially.
Because they were close. They were within a few points of that spot this past season. And I think that is a spot the Hawks could get to this season, is being in that hunt late into the year, playing significant games beyond the trade deadline. But they're a step ahead. Anaheim, Montreal, they're a step ahead. So if those are young rosters that Mitch Marner finds attractive, and teams that are going to be in that contention spot, I'm not going to blame them for trying to go there and be in that kind of role. Now, what Montreal and Anaheim don't have is Connor Bedard.
Right.
That could be a factor.
They do have Demidov. There's a lot of heat around Demidov.
Yeah, but Demidov's not Connor Bedard.
I agree with that, but you know how perceptions go. I don't know. I think with Marner, the temptation to get out of the blaring spotlight is very appealing.
Go to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Well, look, it's what Kyle Davidson said at the end of the year. Like, it's unlikely we're going to sign a free agent like that. There's 30 other teams going after the guy. And we are not in a great position right now to appeal to free agents. What the Hawks do have is money. And if Mitch Marner's biggest offer from a contender is 12.5 or 13, and Hawks say, how about 15? That could be tempting. Over a 7-year span, a significant amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think by adding Marner and probably someone else, I don't think Marner would be their only move, you are getting closer to then becoming next year's Anaheim, right? In the 80-some point range with Marner and free agent or trade piece X and the development of your players. And then the next year, you've still got cap space. Maybe there's somebody else you really like. Add them another year of development for your young players. Boom, you're ready to go. But I sense this happening already. It is already so polarized over Mitch Marner in Chicago that he's going to come here. He's going to get paid more here than he would for a contender, and he's going to be Seth Jones 2.0, where no one's allowed to enjoy it. They nitpick every mistake he makes. Every loss is going to be Mitch Marner's fault, and it's going to suck. And it's like,
and then he'll go to Florida and then be really good.
Well, it's almost as if they never sucked all along.
Almost.
Weird.
Yeah.
But we also have this weird fan base. It's like Davidson has to get a top free agent. What about Mitch Marner? Not Mitch Marner. It can't be Mitch Marner. Okay.
That's the toppest of the free
agents.
agents.
Is it so? And then if it's Brock Besser, then you're going to have the same people. Oh man, we get the C scrap free agents. This guy sucks. He's too slow. There's no way to win here. The Marner thing feels like it's potentially toxic, especially if it gets to the point where the Hawks have to massively overpay him to convince him to come here.